Good afternoon. My name is Ben Lightburn. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Filament Health. Filament is an exclusively natural psychedelic drug discovery and extraction technology company. Our mission is to see safe, natural psychedelics in the hands of everyone who needs them as soon as possible. As a bit of background, I've spent my whole career pretty much researching, identifying, and commercializing novel extraction technologies. What is an extraction technology? Extraction technology is what we use to get some kind of a desirable high-value compound out of the natural world. A good example would be blueberry extract for a dietary supplement, or green tea extract for a hair care product, or an anti-cancer compound used in the pharmaceutical industry. All of these compounds living in the natural world that we need access to need some kind of a technology for removing them from the raw material, the biomass, as we call it. So I've spent my career, as I mentioned, researching new kinds of extraction technologies and, crucially, commercializing them, bringing them out into industry, and also selling the products, the extracts that result from these technologies. And it was really with that lens of experience, building companies around natural extraction technologies, that myself and the other co-founders of Filament, we decided to start a company, because what we saw was that the vast majority of resources and attention in the psychedelics industry were going to psychedelic compounds and companies that were using chemical synthesis methods. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with doing so, we believe that an important piece of the puzzle would be lacking if there were no natural option. The reason for that is because people prefer natural products. How many people can you think of take a synthetic caffeine pill in the morning rather than a cup of coffee? How many people prefer more artificial synthetic food dye in their foods, in their daily lives? We believe very strongly that without a natural psychedelic option, uptake and adoption will be less. And if uptake and adoption of these potentially life-saving substances is less, then all of society stands to lose. So we believe very strongly that in our mission to bring natural psychedelics into the mainstream, as it were, and provide the natural option for people to have a choice. Why is it that synthetics have become prevalent in the psychedelics industry? Well, it's important to remember many of these compounds, like LSD and psilocybin, they were all natural compounds to begin with. They all were discovered in the natural world. But over time, and probably because one of the foundational figures in the industry, Albert Hofmann, was a synthetic pharmaceutical chemist, he developed all the necessary chemical synthesis methods in order to produce these compounds in a lab. What you do really is you take a bunch of base chemicals and you combine them in certain ways and conduct various reactions, so that at the end of the day you have a synthetic version of these compounds that are present in the natural world. They're chemically identical. And the other advantages of synthetics is that they are highly standardizable and repeatable. Some of the chemical compounds used in the manufacture are known to be toxic, but obviously great care is taken to make sure that none of these residues or any of the base chemicals make their way into the final product. So suffice to say that over time, it became the prevalent method of manufacture to create psychedelics through these processes of chemical synthesis, and that really brought us to where we are today. You may ask why there aren't any natural psychedelics. the answer is that there are plenty of natural psychedelics. Lots of people out there are consuming raw psychoactive plant species like magic mushrooms. Many people are consuming simple extracts, like for instance with ayahuasca, which is a combination of extracts of various vines that people use to elicit a psychoactive response in themselves and to treat various conditions that they're suffering with. So there is a very widespread use of natural psychedelics. And in fact, anecdotally, people prefer different kinds of natural psychedelics. You might hear that one strain of mushrooms produces this kind of desirable effect, and this other kind of strain of mushrooms produces this other desirable effect. The problem that the existing natural psychedelics suffer from is lack of standardization. As we know, for a pharmaceutical product, one of the most important things that you can provide when you're manufacturing it is consistency and repeatability, and that's one of the main advantages of synthetics. When you work with a raw material, a raw biomass such as magic mushrooms, you do, since it's a natural product, you do have a certain amount of variability from batch to batch, from different plant parts, from the stem to the cap, or between different species or different varieties. We've actually been surprised to see in our lab that different strains of mushrooms from within the same species can contain as much as 5 times the amount of the psychoactive alkaloids as other strains. So it's very important to figure out how to get these variable raw materials into a stable, repeatable, consistent extract final dosage form. And that's really where our expertise has been very helpful, and it's where we've actually made a lot of progress. It turns out that to make extracts of magic mushrooms and other psychoactive species is actually relatively challenging. We hear sometimes, well, psilocybin is water soluble, so how hard can it possibly be to make an extract of the magic mushroom? And the answer to that question is, well, just because psilocybin is water soluble doesn't necessarily mean that water is an ideal extraction solvent for the extraction of psilocybin from the magic mushroom. Because when you extract psilocybin from the magic mushroom with water, you're extracting more than just psilocybin. There are many other elements in the raw magic mushroom that can either help or hinder the extraction. So it turns out that simple water is not the best extraction solvent, nor in fact does it even really work. Another thing that's really surprised us as we've gone about our processes of discovering extraction technologies is to discover that a lot of what's been written in the scientific literature and what's been published in books and what you can read about on the internet, a lot of what's been published about how to make these extracts is actually wrong. And again, it's not surprising due to the challenges that the challenging conditions that some of these extraction situations represent. It's not very common to have expertise and equipment and facilities to conclusively judge whether or not your extraction process has been successful or not. And again, this is where we bring our expertise and are attempting for the first time to demonstrate all of this in a clear and repeatable result. We believe very strongly that the natural world is the best place to look for the next best psychedelic therapy. There's no rule that says that psilocybin is the best psychedelic therapeutic. There's no rule that says that magic mushrooms are the best psychedelic species. There are over 100 different psychoactive plant species and 100 plus different strains and species of different psychoactive mushrooms. It's very possible that one of the known but as of yet unstudied clinically psychoactive compounds could turn out to be beneficial to the psychedelics that we are familiar with today. Not only that, a combination of compounds found naturally in psychoactive raw materials could also turn out to be more therapeutically beneficial than single compound purified extracts or synthesized single compounds. A lot is talked about something called the entourage effect. The entourage effect is the idea that multiple compounds present in the raw material, when extracted and delivered together, can provide some kind of benefit over just the single compound alone. We are very excited about the possibility to determine whether the entourage effect exists. We don't know, besides from any anecdotal evidence, we don't really know whether the entourage effect exists or is a therapeutic tool. The point is, however, without making a pharmaceutical grade extract and putting those extracts into clinical trials, we will never be able to figure out whether the entourage effect even exists. So now that we all believe very firmly that natural psychedelics are very much worth pursuing, I just want to go over what we at Filament have done to date in support of this goal. First and foremost, we secured a facility in the Vancouver area and secured all the necessary licenses to produce controlled substances, and in particular to produce GMP grade clinical trial candidates. Our facility is dedicated to research and manufacturing of these candidates. We have an active growing program for magic mushrooms. We've grown over 20 different strains of mushrooms and fully analyzed their contents. And from that production, we've actually produced various clinical trial candidates. The clinical trial candidates that we are very excited to study soon in partnership with University of California, San Francisco, are going to be the first ever natural psychedelic clinical trial candidates in FDA-approved clinical trials. Our upcoming phase 1 trial is actually going to look at a compound from the magic mushroom that is not psilocybin, that we believe has therapeutic benefits when compared to psilocybin. And so we will be comparing this compound, which has never before been administered in a clinical trial. We'll be comparing it directly to psilocybin to see if it can have any therapeutic benefits. Our second trial, which is a much larger phase 2 trial, will look at the effects of our natural psilocybin formulation, and it will do something very interesting, and it will use ketamine as I guess you could say, a very active control condition. This is to overcome one of the major holdbacks of all psychedelic research, which is lack of good placebo control. We believe that we can provide some of the most innovative and compelling research for all psychedelic trials, natural or synthetic, by using this innovative study design. The team that's been doing this at our lab, I can say I've had the pleasure of working with them before. At a previous company, we built a 35,000 square foot manufacturing facility that produced GMP grade botanical extracts of all different kinds. So that's just a small sample of all the exciting things that we have on the go. But the core message I want to leave with is that, it's clear that consumers, that citizens of all kinds prefer natural options in their day-to-day life. And it's therefore very important that there are companies such as ours out there pursuing natural psychedelics. Because without these natural psychedelics, adoption will be less, and then the ability for some of the great challenges we are facing to be addressed by these psychedelics will be limited. Thank you very much.